Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of your Burning ADHD Questions. And this is where I answer any questions you might have about ADHD and nutrition and, how to reduce symptoms naturally. I'm Dana Kay. For any of you who don't already know me, I'm a board-certified holistic health and nutrition practitioner, and I'm so excited to be jumping on here live for this week's edition of your Burning Questions. Now, I asked earlier this week on some of my social media channels what your questions are, and I had some really, really great responses. So I'm going to get to a couple of them today. And if I don't get to your ones, don't worry, I'll save them for later. So I'm going to dive right in. Firstly, if anyone is watching live, I'd love you to drop me a hashtag live. And also, if you're watching the replay, drop me a hashtag replay. It just lets me be able to see how many people are online when I'm actually doing these live and how many are watching the replay and what time is, the best time to be doing them. So the first question, we're going to get started. Our first question was from Gloria, and she said, how do you get a non-compliant ADHD and ODD kid 9 years old to eat the food you need him to? We are already doing all organic, dye-free. He's also sensitive to casein and gluten. We've been trying to go gluten and dairy-free for some time now, but he doesn't like to try anything that's not his 2 or 3 foods he eats, which is basically grilled chicken, cheese, and pasta. I've tried your recipes and many others. It's not that the food doesn't taste good, it's that he doesn't even try. So Gloria, honestly, I have to say, this is such a common question I get asked. We want our kids to eat better, but what do we do if they refuse to eat? And I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks to get you started. And I will say about 70% of the families that I work with have picky eaters. And, I've got families that have come into my program eating 5 foods only, but now eat like 150 foods. Don't worry, it's not impossible. You can do it. And these are some of the tips that are going to help you. So tip number 1 is go slow, okay? You really don't want to rush into it. You want to take him along the journey with you. You only want to sort of introduce one new food at a time. Otherwise, it can be too overwhelming for kids. You don't want to just pull out a really amazing recipe that he's never eaten before with all of this stuff in it. He's probably going to go, no, don't want a bar of it, Mum. Also, if you just swap out gluten-free bread for regular bread, your kids aren't going to like it. It's the same with cheese or yogurt or milk. So, if you say, oh, here, darling, here's your grilled cheese, and it's got gluten-free bread and dairy-free cheese, they're going to be like, hey, Mum, that is not what I'm used to, honestly. Just swapping them out can lead to a lot of pushback, especially with children with ODD. So instead of just swapping it out cold turkey, we have found that it's best to start with 3/4 of the old and 1/4 of the new. So with milk, for instance, you would start with 3/4 of a cup of regular milk mixed with 1/4 a cup of dairy-free milk. Now, after a few days of this, you increase the dairy-free milk and maybe go half and half. Then once the kids are used to that, go to 1/4 of the regular and 3/4 of the dairy-free. Now, this allows, the palate to adjust slowly to the new flavors. There have been many families who did this and their kids actually didn't even notice the change. And I have to say, this is what we did many years ago when we were transitioning to dairy-free milk. Now, of course, this works when you've got milk and yogurt or cheese, but not with something like bread. So for bread, it's definitely best to toast gluten-free bread before eating it, as it makes it much better and not as hard to sort of tell. You could also start this transition by adding a nut butter or fruit spread to the bread to make it taste better. Some families find it best to just cut bread out of their diet completely for a few weeks and then reintroduce the gluten-free bread once the taste buds have had a little time to sort of kind of forget what it tastes like of the normal bread. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is try eating more foods that are naturally gluten and dairy free instead of those that you have to sub out ingredients for. So a couple of our easy favorite go-tos are roast chicken breasts with veggies and tacos made with organic corn taco shells. If you leave off the cheese on the taco and use organic corn shells, these are naturally gluten and dairy free. Just be careful because some kiddos do react to corn, but I always choose organic corn if they're not highly reactive to corn. Steak is also another good naturally gluten-free option. Tip number 3 is making mealtimes fun. In many families, mealtime, it kind of turns into this battleground. I remember, when I was going through this with my son many years ago, like I literally felt like I wanted to hide in the cupboard every time mealtime came. Most families find that if mealtimes can be more fun, kids are more likely to try new foods. We like to play games at the dinner table or read from a joke book. Sometimes we'll even play a game centered around food where everyone who licks and tries the new foods gets to put a check mark on a board, and once we reach a certain amount of ticks, we get to do something special as a family. And this is, I kind of like to call this the family food challenge. And you pick a food for the week and you lick and try and eat a little bit of that food every day for that whole week, and hopefully you get a tick every single day, everyone in the family, so then you can go and do something together. Next week you'll pick a new food, so maybe your son might pick the second food, and then someone else might pick the third food. So it is like this family food challenge. And then literally after 4 weeks, all of a sudden you've tried 4 new foods. And remember, it takes 15 to 20 times for a kid to accept a new flavor and new texture, so don't give up. Now, just make dinner more fun, and it can really just help take that pressure off. The next tip is food chaining. So food chaining is a technique I commonly use for families in my program. So I think I've talked about it before in the group, but I just want to raise it again for you if you didn't catch that live earlier. Now, you'll learn the secret to sort of change the shape, change the seasoning, change the cooking method, and change the way that your child tries the same food. So don't just go from like drinking juice every day to drinking green smoothies. You want to slowly get them to where you want to go. For example, potato. It can be prepared a million different ways. So don't change the food that you enjoy. Change the way that you serve it. Change the texture, the seasoning, the herbs, add herbs and spices. Just keep introducing it. Change up the shape, the seasoning and preparation. And you can deep fry, pan fry, you can make mashed potato, potato tots, you can add spices, you can even combine the potato with sweet potato mash. So it's all about changing things really slowly from that base and from the food that your child already enjoys. Now, don't give up. Keep introducing it, staying as calm as you can, and hopefully they'll begin to like it more. One other thing to keep in mind is that as inflammation in the body goes down, when you change the diet, gluten, dairy, soy free, that's what starts to happen. The palate in the mouth, it starts to open up. So things that your child doesn't like now, they might start to like once that inflammation is reduced in their bodies. So hopefully that helps. If you've got any questions, pop them below in the comments, and I would be more than happy to come back and answer them. Now, our next question was from Christine. She actually has 2 questions. The first one was her 5-year-old daughter was diagnosed with ADHD on Thursday, and I just purchased today an essential oil called Vetiver through Amazon. I heard it helps ease her symptoms. Have you heard of this? And if so, what do you think? And another question, please, is it typical for a child with ADHD to behave real well in school for several days and then start misbehaving all over again? Also, how can I help my child focus on learning and listen to her teachers and with us as parents? So these are great questions, Christine. So I'm going to dive right in. Vetiver is an essential oil that is often used to help relieve stress and calm and also help with focus. So for any of you listening who aren't familiar with essential oils, I want to begin by explaining how they work. So they work in a variety of ways. Some can be inhaled, some can be applied topically, and some can actually be ingested. And one thing I do want to mention is that you want to make sure and use them safely and correctly. Not all oils can be inhaled, not all can be ingested. So when using topically, you also want to be very, very careful to make sure that you dilute them because they can burn the skin. Some oils are known as hot oils, and when you put them on directly without diluting them first, they will burn the skin. So some essential oils can be ingested, but you do want to, again, be careful with this and make sure you're only using the ones that are verified safe to ingest. So when inhaled, essential oils can affect various systems within our body, like the olfactory, the limbic, and the respiratory systems. Now, the olfactory system includes all of the physical components within our body that relate or contribute to our sense of smell. So as we inhale the aromas of the essential oils, molecules will go directly through our nose or mouth and travel down to different parts of the body, like the brain and the lungs. So when the molecules travel to the brain, they are believed to have an impact on our limbic system, which is commonly referred to as part of the brain that is in charge of our emotions. And we know a lot of kids have, trouble with that with ADHD. Now, the limbic system also controls bodily processes like our heart rate, our blood pressure, our stress, and our breathing. So essential oils can also be applied topically to our skin, then absorbed into the bloodstream where they can reach these systems within our body. But again, make sure you're diluting. I can't say it enough, especially when you're using them with children. Now, the general benefits you may experience when using essential oils, things like improved focus and concentration, boosts to the immune system, supports to the digestive system, and it helps function optimally. It helps you relax and reduce stress. It promotes overall wellness, healthier skin and hair. Now, in terms of will they magically fix problems associated with ADHD? In my opinion, no, they won't. They won't be the be-all and end-all to the journey, but they smell good. They can have relaxing effects and calming effects. So if you have them at home, then that is awesome. We use them, but it's really not the foundation of our plan. And I remember many years ago when I was going through this journey with my son, I also had read that Vetiver was great for focusing, but again, it was okay, but it didn't end up, really helping what we needed to help. So hopefully that answers that. But again, this is just my opinion. Everyone has their own opinion, but I have done some research into it and obviously work with lots of families that have kids with ADHD. Now, you also ask if it's typical for children with ADHD to behave well for a few days, then regress. And again, this is definitely very common with kids with ADHD. It's sometimes hard to know what could be causing the regression. Just like us, kids with ADHD sometimes have bad days or don't feel well. Maybe they're fighting off sickness that you don't even know about, or didn't sleep well that night, even though you thought they slept all night. It's also definitely possible their behavior could be tied to what they have eaten. Now, one question I would ask you, Christine, is if you have made any dietary changes with your daughter. The families that I work with see significant changes in behavior once they remove these top inflammatory foods from their kids' diet. I'm going to pop a link in the comments after this is over to a 25-minute webinar that I have that explains the steps I typically suggest for families to begin with. So be on the lookout for that. But I will also say, gluten and dairy create an opioid effect in the brain, okay? And they can create these antibodies against gluten and dairy. Now, opioid effect, when you know about opioids, they're kind of like what happens when you have morphine. And you can create these antibodies against gluten called glutamorphin and protonorphin. And you can also create these antibodies in your body to something called casomorphin, which is in dairy. And so just like you have someone who is addicted to morphine, you can be addicted to gluten and casein, which is within dairy. And so just like someone who is withdrawing from morphine or someone who is on morphine, they have good days and bad days. Like, some days they're, can't focus, they're having, meltdowns, their emotions are all bad. But then, some days they're functioning really well. So gluten and casein or dairy can actually create that effect in the body as well. It's so interesting. And I could go deep dive, into that, but that's a story for another day. So guys, I think our time's up. If you did ask a question and I didn't answer, I'm definitely going to put it on our list to answer in one of the other burning questions. But I hope that helps. If you have any questions about what I talked about today, drop them below and I'm more than happy to answer them. So guys, hope you have a wonderful weekend and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.